it has actually changed my behavior as well, even at home. My lights are controlled by, they're connected to the internet. You know, almost all my appliances are,
Ah,
right? And in fact, the times now when I go to a room, I have a tendency to command the devices, even if wala ako sa bahay. So, it has changed my perception content. Welcome to Kaka Computer, where tech meets wit and wisdom. And in today's episode, we're gonna talk about the Internet of Things, or IoT, connecting the world. So, let's begin with this episode. This episode's interesting to me because I've noticed that IoT was a little bit of a boom for a while, and medyo parang natabunan na siya. No, robotics was parang everywhere, teached everywhere, Arduino, uh, Raspberry. But after a while, parang it didn't go into full production. Parang you don't see it really
take off.
take off. We know it's there because we have smart devices like yung mga Alexa, Google Home, yung mga bulbs, ganyan.
Yep.
But not everyone adopts it, right? So what are your insights on this? Where is IoT now?
Yeah, same observation. There is a problem with adoption. No, it's not really, being picked up. Tapos yung nga, natatabunan siya. Lalo na nung sabihin natin yung peak nung hype ng generative AI last year, di ba? Parang nakalimutan mo na siya ngayon. Pero, I'd say, right now, kunyari, yung aircon ko sa bahay, I can control it remotely. Pwede kong iset up na malamig na siya pag uwi ko galing sa commute, di ba? Malalamig ka na. Although for the most part, nakita ko yung mga IoT stuff, at least for consumer devices, as a value add. Hindi siya parang main sort of feature or driver na bibili mo isang bagay because it's internet-enabled. But it's more of like a extension. So, yun nga, I think yung general idea, if you ask me about IoT and adoption for now, I see it as a feature add. It's not really a main driver. But it has its place. But everything is sort of parang exploratory, experimental pa lang in the grand scheme of things. And
Right.
I guess I can expound on that later, but that's just my general impression.
I think IoT is still there. It's just very focused on, let's say, farming, mga ganon, healthcare. It's still very, very much prevalent. It's just not making that much noise because we're so hyped with AI right now. But definitely it's still there. And there's also like a huge revolution right now to integrate generative AI into these IoT devices. So that is still a work in progress. But there is still IoT and it's still present. You just have to look at the proper and right industries.
Right. Actually, now that I think about it, no, tama naman. Kasi like you, it has actually changed my behavior as well, even at home. My lights are controlled by, they're connected to the internet. You know, almost all my appliances are, right? And in fact, the times now when I go to a room, I have a tendency to command the devices, even if wala ako sa bahay. So, it has changed my perception content, no? And I guess maybe it has been adopted actually. You don't see it too much, but it's already there. Parang
Baka
naging,
specialized kasi ng
Or
ano
depending
niya.
on the industry, like
Yeah.
what you pointed out.
Yeah.
It does remind me of one of my projects before, na related to smart cities. But yeah, I guess it is a bit of a, depending kung where you look at it, as a consumer product or general adoption, medyo mababa. Pero it has a huge space depending on industry. Manufacturing,
Healthcare.
agriculture, as you mentioned, healthcare, yeah.
right. Is there still innovation in the IoT space, or is there more that we can do there, or is it mostly timer on and off, trigger sensors?
Definitely. I've actually worked on a smart gardening project before that integrated AI. So the project is like about imaging, computer vision. So they would know if they will have good yield based on the color of the leaves. So they are training AI models to identify what should be done on a specific greenhouse to make it like produce more yields. So definitely AI is there, and there's much innovation that can be done on the IoT devices. Like also IoT, knowing na scattered siya, no, the data can pass from one node to another. Definitely security is something that we can actually innovate as well. How do we actually like encrypt from the data from one point to another to still make it secure?
Right.
So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely. There's always, one of the things I keep saying is that the biggest room in the universe is the room for improvement.
Mm-mm.
There's definitely a lot of opportunity for IoT. I think yung malaking barrier lang kasi medyo infrastructure-based or hardware-based yung entry man, like say software, di ba, they can code up stuff,
Right.
Yep.
put in the cloud, incrementally implement it. Pero ito, it requires rollout of actual hardware devices.
So
yung-
logistics, right?
But definitely, I guess two things. You mentioned yung control, like on-off. You mentioned data collection and intelligence behind it. So you can also combine the two. One of the things that I worked on actually recently is about related to smart cities,
Mm-mm.
of really aggregating a bunch of distributed, energy resources, like mga photovoltaic cells, mga solar,
Okay.
electric car chargers. And also, kasi yung nature ng electricity distribution pala, hindi siya static eh. Kunyari, dun sa electricity spot market, they call it, nagva-vary yung price ng electricity.
Yes.
So with IoT, with tracking and monitoring and all these DERs, you can actually optimize. So parang when do we buy electricity from the market? When do we store yung energy we gathered from photovoltaic cells?
Mm-mm.
Kailan yung demand? And so there's an aspect both of data gathering and intelligence, as you mentioned, and also of control, na you mentioned. So yung you medyo na na-touch yung medyo separate yung magkaiwalay.
Yeah.
Pero nga, if you combine that and also extrapolate and parang come up with all sorts of really cool solutions, you can, as you understand how yung ba, it plays within the field and what kinds of problems you can solve, you can really innovate. And then I think malaki yung barrier lang talaga. For example, dun sa project na incorporated ko, it was partly funded by government, partly funded by university. So malaki yung backing, like a lot of really innovations. Maski yung COVID vaccine, yung RNA is also government slash industry
Right.
academic funding, diba? So in a similar way, hindi siya parang yung something na pwede mong ipasok na parang, software SaaS service
Right.
startup. Medyo yun yung isang parang logistical and then parang financial and really hindrance in really kind of getting into it. Malaki yung but as I've said, there's always room for improvement everywhere, especially that we haven't really spent a lot of time with it. Pero I'm pretty sure na parang if you think of things and how extrapolate what you can do, control and data gathering, and then feed to the cloud and do whatever, parang there's so many things you can possibly come up with.
Right. No. And I think overall, I get this that the IoT seems to be in three spaces. Yung medyo, let's say, cheap items, yung medyo closer to the consumer items, right? And you have to be careful a little bit kasi yung wear and tear niya mas mabilis. And then, the other side naman sa IoT is also the very specialized, high-tech, and these ones are capital intensive naman kasi you make the hardware very specific. You don't want failure in that hardware kasi very specific. No? And so, in as you mentioned, na parang it's harder to play or experiment on, especially if you are in the very specific side because there's a capital intensive and the risk of failure is high in that sense, or you have to be careful compared to software. Right? Compared to software where it's easier to deploy. Cloud now gives you a lot of servers, etc. So you can experiment faster.
Oh, you can patch faster. Kunyari yung sabi sa security, di ba?
Oo.
If you realize na parang yung embedded device mo is madali pa lang itap, i-hack, wala, may mga certain hardware-based security, di ba? Hindi mo siya pwedeng i-patch. You have to replace them all. And it's really, as you mentioned, capital intensive. Unlike say, merong vulnerability, let's just patch yung software and then update the server and then we're good to go. So it adds a layer of cost and complexity talaga when you have like an hardware component.
Also, if you're really in the specialized industry, you have to develop its own firmware. That's another challenge. Like, how do you actually like make sure that you are getting the features and then integrating that with the hardware specific component. So may mga may ibang IoT companies that they also develop the operating system that would run on that specific device. But there's also like room for like tinkerers na they will just purchase some stuff and then they would like make things out of it and use like a open source software that they could probably like install yep. So that.
White Cloak Technologies is a custom software development company. They build mobile and web applications. They work with leading brands in banking and real estate. Visit their website at www.whitecloak.com to know more. Yeah, you mentioned the maker space, no? That's also a very interesting section, because we think of sometimes in maker space is like the space of 3D printing also.
Yep.
No, so 3D printing devices, and then those devices maybe can be IoT enabled or framed. Um, if you want to go into this field, I don't know if you guys can answer this. What would your advices be for people that want to try or specialize in the IoT field?
Well, me, I'm just curious. I think kasi yung background ko kasi is electrical engineering, electronics talaga eh. Hindi, bali napunta lang ako sa IT and
Right.
practice. But it still
It's still it
pulls me.
pulls you. Oo.
And then ngayon nga lately, parang may mga opportunity, may mga chances to also parang apply. But yeah, ultimately, you don't have to have that background really. I think lalo na ngayon yung entry to build embedded systems is simpler. This might show my age. Pero before kasi we have to like code in assembly, parang really print the firmware into an EPROM, or
Right.
a programmable read-only memory, and then do really machine-specific instructions. Ngayon, high-level language. Meron ng mga embedded Java, meron ng Python, and really control things. You mentioned Arduino and Raspberry Pi. I know, parang you can go to yung Microsoft Store app and install yung Arduino
Yes.
na, di ba? And just plug everything on the USB and it can good to go. So everything is cheap. Pinag-usapan namin to kanina na yung mga original na mga development kits are relatively cheap, like $69, $99. Tapos, I don't know if you can say this, pero kung punta ka sa Lazada, may mga parang imitation ng mga
Yes.
kits that actually is the same thing, same sets, but really much cheaper. And then, so yung barrier to entry to get started is really, really low now. It's very, very accessible. And as far as I know, so long as you have the drive, your curiosity, you can get started. You can get hooked.
So for me naman, baliktad yung sa akin. I'm more on the software development side. Then I had to learn some electronics along the way. So like it came as a hobby. I started with DSP, then I went to Arduino, and then I tried to print my own PCBs. So there is definitely some difficulties, especially if you're like me. So I had to design my own drone, and I have to make sure that I need to measure the right battery to have it more longer life na hindi din siya umiinit. so I had to like figure things out and then just research my way to actually make it happen. So definitely you can order in Alibaba or like mahal kasi yung shipping, but you have to like order from this stuff. And if you come to China, like if Shanghai is actually like the haven of IoT devices, so definitely you can procure all of these components everywhere naman na.
Right. And so I think I'd like to summarize or end this in a way that as we go towards a world that we are really more interconnected and we see people interfacing with actual devices, I think IoT will become natural in that sense. No, it could be through our generative AI in IoT itself. It could be that we're so used to it. It might even be to a point na robotics is here. You can see that also with a lot of the home devices, autonomous robots being developed out there, and scarily we hear that we have robots reproducing also, right? If you've seen, no, there is like, or
We
they
will
say,
train AI models to capture human
Parang
consciousness
ano yun.
and embed it to hardware.
Okay.
it might get there. It might get there, no? It might get there. And they even say that we have dark factories already
Oh.
out there.
I
Right?
think that's a stretch.
There's a stretch. Which one? The dark factory?
No, I mean, yeah, or yung parang dystopian Matrix future is probably not gonna happen.
But the technology is getting there, I would
Yeah.
say. But we will have the guardrails to protect the society.
Yeah,
I
there's
guess.
always like ethics around ethic that should like come around it. And I think in order for us to have a better adoption in IoT, we have to make it as invisible as possible. That means it's integrated in our daily life that we don't have to like adjust so much to it. Na parang it comes naturally when we use it. For example, like yung smartwatch, 'di ba? Like it's like a watch but it does many things for you. And it like syncs the data to the cloud and then you can get some statistics. So making IoT devices invisible is really a way to go to make it more to make people adopt to it.
I'd say. So just to add to that, so there is that aspect of yung usability, right? Na parang medyo automatic na, it's almost ubiquitous. And I'd say yung smartwatches is, you can consider that as IoT already,
Yes,
right?
yes, definitely.
And the other side of things naman, there are a lot of still challenges for companies to adopt. I did mention about yung logistical challenges, right? There's still security, privacy, and regulatory concerns. And I think yung certain also, I guess yung hesitation din ng users about the types of data that's being collected. But over time, you can solve this. And yeah, over time, once we get past those roadblocks and then maybe things become cheaper because of, say, economies of scale, things become easier to manufacture, then yeah, you'd see yung IoT pretty much being ubiquitous everywhere in pretty much everything that you use. And people will be really comfortable, if not second nature na sa kanila na gamitin sila.